Hey everybody, it's Denny with my YouTube channel, Why Is This True? And I think I'm live. It's a beautiful sunny day here. That's a mockingbird in the background if you can hear it. Sometimes they'll go all night. Anyway, he's a great mimic. So, it's Sunday afternoon out here on the West Coast, and I have a little bit of a slowed down schedule for interviews. I'm going to edit one that I did with Marguerite, where she did a little bit of channeling. I'm gonna edit that tonight and put that out. I might start uploading it tonight. We'll see how it goes. And so, as usual, there's a whole lot going along. A lot of things I could talk about. There's focus on Shasta now, because Corey's got his event coming up August 18th through the 21st. I think they're still working on the speakers list. That's Mismo. That's my protection cat. I don't think he wants to be on video. He's not very charming these days. He's got like a cancerous growth or something on his nose. I've had two different people tell me that he's running protection on me, which is, I guess cats are notorious for that. They will do like an energetic shielding for you. And I haven't really researched it too much. But he and I'll tell you his story someday. His name is Mismo. I'll tell it to you now. Anyway, his name is Mismo. He's a gray cat, and his predecessor was a cat named Shadow, was a female. But except for her Shadow being a female and Mismo being a male, they were spit and image. I mean, it looked identical. So a few years ago, it's about 10 years ago, I guess. My wife was home and she went out on the front yard, and there's Shadow on the front lawn, and she had been hit by a car. She was dying, or she had just died on the front yard. And so Jennifer got a towel, picked up Shadow, and was sitting on the porch crying with Shadow on her lap. And so while she's sitting there, she hears this little kitten crying from the pelargoniums right next to the front steps. And so she's got Shadow on her lap, expired, dead from a car, from being hit by a car. And she looks over in the pelargoniums, and there's this little tiny gray kitten, same gray color as Shadow, and that's Mismo. And so Mismo and I kind of hit it off. He used to sleep right next to my head in our bed when he was a little tiny kitten, and so that went on until he grew up a little bit. So anyway, he's older now, has this health problem. We took him into the vet, and she said he's got heavy metal toxic poisoning. So quite a protocol to get him cleaned up. But he's really picky. It's really hard to change his diet. Anyway, so that's the Mismo story. So Mismo means the same in Spanish, so that's how he came up with that name. So I'm kind of in the shadow here, aren't I? Maybe I should move this up a little bit. I could take off the shades too, make it more personal. So there's still lots of talk about contact in the desert, yay, and all the different stuff that went on with that. Lots of good stuff, lots of weird stuff. I guess this guy, dark journalist, guy who kind of telegraphed his punches there, put out I guess part 6 and mentioned Roger, who's Corey's business partner, and I'm telling everybody just to move on, whatever. People who ask, I'm not telling everybody. People who ask me, that's what I say. Just let it go. But anyway, I thought I went and checked the counts on the viewership on that one interview that I did with Roger back on 11/11 of 2016, and not very many people looked at that. And I thought, well, if there's all this interest in this fellow, why didn't that come up? Because it's not hard to find. So anyway, I reposted it on Facebook just for people who would like to get to know Roger better in his own words. And I got a very nice comment from Sid Goldberg, I guess he's a producer now with Gaiam TV. A very nice comment from him about getting the other side of the story in someone's own words. So I think the point being that if someone was going to do an objective reporting on some figure like Roger in this case, that Roger, maybe it would be a good idea to let Roger speak for himself in that regard, which apparently he was not given the opportunity for. I don't know all the details. Anyway, the point being is that it's an interview. It was already done. It was in the can. I put it out there for people who don't know Roger, Corey's new business partner, and would like to get a better feeling for who this person is. So you can see that. It's on my channel as well. Anyway, enough of that. So I've got a couple very interesting interviews coming up. One with a fellow who is rebuilding his timeline, I think along the lines of the suggestions that Tony Rodriguez puts out for people who are starting to feel that maybe they were involved in the secret space program. So this fellow contacted me after seeing some of my videos, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be a debut for him. He's never really come out to the public to talk about his experiences or whatever. So I think, he contacted me some time ago, and in the interim period, he's been working on his timeline of kind of fleshing things out, letting the memories fill in. And so I'm really looking forward to that interview. That's going to be coming up pretty soon. And then I've got another one that I'm very excited about, and it's a bit of a repeat, but it's about a new book that Miguel Mendonça put out, and he sent me a copy, and I am all over this thing. It is so interesting. So we're going to do an interview, Miguel, myself, and Krista Raisa, who's in this book. So you want to check her out if you get a chance. Krista Raisa is the author of this book right here, and she channels the Orion Council. Okay, Krista Raisa and Miguel. So we're going to do an interview with the three of us. There she is with her mom, and she lives down in Sedona, I think. And I've been following her for a while. I got this book quite a while ago when I found out that I apparently have some connection with an Orion Council. It's called the Orion Council of One, which I found virtually no information on. Apparently, the few people who do know about the Orion Council of One don't communicate about it, or at least they're not replying to my inquiries. So if you're in on the Orion Council of One, which is different from Orion Council, apparently there's supposedly a whole bunch of Orion Councils. That's what Krista tells me. There's a whole bunch of them. So picking one out is kind of like needle in a haystack kind of thing. So anyway, so that's another interview I'm really looking forward to, and I'm having a blast with this book. The artwork on the front is by Vashta Narada, who does some really cool artwork for Gaiam TV. With some of her artwork is displayed in Corey's information coming out through Cosmic Disclosure. She's an accomplished artist, and her section, she doesn't do interviews very much, but she has an interview that she did with Miguel in here. There's a section in here on page 209, Vashta Narada. That's Vashtanara, her last name is Narada, and you can do a search on her and get her website and look at her fantastic art. This is just one example. She works closely with Rob Gauthier, who's also in this book, and then Lisa Royale, Jacqueline Smith, Krista's in here, Krista Raisa, who we'll be doing the interview with, and that's on page 103. So if you can get your hands on this book, I'm having a blast with it. I've read the two sections now with Vashta and the one with Krista Raisa, and now I want to read the rest of it. But of course, you know me, I'm going to try to read 10 books all at once. And then another interesting Jeff Rense just did an interview with a fellow who wrote a book called The Secret Science and the Secret Space Program. And so at minute 35 into the interview, most recent interview, or a very recent interview with Jeff Rense, I'll put the links down below on all this stuff when this thing goes published. But Herbert Dorsey the third did an interview with Jeff Rense, and Herbert talks about Corey at minute 35 into that video, and it's kind of interesting what Herbert says about him. Herbert, I've made some inquiries to Herbert to get an interview with him. He doesn't do interviews very much, and I guess he likes the larger venues, like, and there's Herbert there. I really recommend this book. If you like Dr. Sala, you'll love this. It's a really good book. I really enjoyed reading this book, and I'm sure these are all available on Kindle. And there's another book that you can actually get online for free. And I finally broke down and bought a hard copy of this just because I found it so valuable for me. And that's this one right here. How the Illuminati Create an Undetectable, Total Mind-Controlled Slave. This is an older book. This book, I think, was originally written in the 90s. And this goes into the programming, the actual nuts and bolts of programming, and apparently used in the MyLab, in the abductions and stuff, and the whole Illuminati program. So if somebody's been grabbed when they were a kid and put through the Monarch program, this is where you read about it. I think this is a very important book. It gives you a frame of reference for what some of these people have gone through and what they're dealing with. Pretty intense. I think Tony's reading this one right now, Tony Rodriguez. This book is written by Cisco Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier. And so there's going to be more. There's stuff in the works right now that relates to this that I'll get to at some point. I just wanted to mention it. So that's some of the stuff that's going on. One of the things that comes up from time to time in the comments section of my YouTube channel is the programming that we have. This is an observation on my part, and I hope this is helpful. But it comes up in different ways, and a lot of the people that are involved, people that I would even call light workers, that are involved, and I'm sensitive to this because I'm guilty of it myself, or susceptible to it myself, and all the different ways that we're programmed to give our power away, and we wouldn't really perceive it that way ourselves, but I'm starting to get sensitized to it. And there was a comment, and specifically about, I guess it was in reference to one of the channeling series that Carl and I did, and about how this manipulation that we're all subject to is so extensive and so widespread and so well thought out and so deep, and how it operates on so many different levels, and how we fall prey to it without really even being conscious of it sometimes. And so this question, which I think was kind of innocuous in a lot of ways, and it was kind of a question directed to Carl, who I must admit does not check in on my YouTube channel very much. So there's questions there that I have to grab and then relay them over to Carl, because he doesn't spend too much time looking at videos, even his own videos. So I'll do my best in conveying some of those questions. But this one I wanted to bring up because it was a question directed towards him about what can we do to prevent being manipulated so much, like what can we do? Hey Carl, what can we do to prevent us from being manipulated? And I thought, wow, that's another example of how we've been programmed to give our power away. Like, what's Carl going to say beyond what he's already said? And what he has said is that reach out to the divine realm for help. I don't think it matters what it is. I think what might be more important in that whole question is, like, a lot of times we have preconceived notions about what that help would look like, and so we kind of fixate on that, like we need divine help with something in our lives, and we think we know what that solution is. Well, my experience has been is that usually when we do that, it just gets in the way of the solution being applied effectively, or us even recognizing it when a solution is offered. So a lot of times, the best thing to do is ask for help and then get out of the way, because you don't know what kind of help that the divine realm is going to offer to you. And sometimes it's things that are surprising, very creative and surprising, and sometimes a lot easier than we think they would be. So anyway, I thought the question. So I responded to the question, something to the effect of, it's like, it's not really it's not really Carl's going to tell us what we can do. A lot of times, it's something that we already know that we can do, in letting our light shine more fully, or some mission that we've been put on the planet to do. And sometimes it doesn't seem like something that's very big or very impactful in terms of the sphere that we're in. But we know it's kind of like this little nagging thing, like, boy, I would really love to do this if only, and then there'd be something that's keeping us from doing that thing. And it turns out, I think, for many of us, that thing is, if we would just get out of our own way or stop making excuses and just go do that, all the while asking for divine help, that's how we prevent ourselves from being manipulated. So anyway, I just put that out there to be on the alert for the programming that we're subjected to about, being manipulated, having our light being sequestered, and not being able to share that. So I'm getting some messages here. I think it's from Hakan. I think Hakan from Turkey. I think you're supposed to be working anyway. But thanks for chiming in. I'm going to try to, when it appears here, I'm going to try to read it. I see there's comments that come in. For example, did Coney or Tori's parents experience a reality where their child was missing, or does that ever happen? LOL. Okay, well, my understanding of how that works is that if they're gone, they're only gone for like a 5 minutes, and it's at night when they're in bed and the parents are in bed or whatever. So the kid gets abducted, spends 20 years off in the slave program or MyLab or however you want to say it in the secret space program, and he gets regressed and then returned back as a child. They only missed like 5 minutes in some cases. Sometimes it's instantaneous. That's my understanding of it. That's how it's been explained to me, which has enabled my grasp of that, although it seems very implausible from our perspective. So alternate reality until the regression is done. Yeah, I guess that's another way of looking at it. Or, you have two parallel timelines. Some people have even speculated, and I think Tony speculated this in a recent interview with Neil 333, who I talked about, I think, in my last live stream, where Tony was speculating that your oversoul or your soul actually is running two different versions of yourself simultaneously. So that's another way of looking at it. So we had I host a weekly meditation here every Sunday morning at 9:00, and this is the one that's run through prepareforchange.net and the one that's promoted by Cobra on 2012 Blogspot or 2012portal.blogspot.se. And that's a weekly meditation that's been going on for a few years now. I think it might even be since 2012. I've only been doing it for a couple of years. So anyway, every Sunday morning at 9:00, we host a meditation here that goes on simultaneously all over the world. And so we used to have like maybe 8, 10, 15 people that would show up here, because it used to be at noon. Now it's at 9:00 in the morning, so we've lost a lot of morning people. But we do have some regulars that show up. There's only 2 that didn't show up this morning that are regulars. That was Dawn and Coral. But Alan, Aaron, and Hari joined Jen and I this morning for the meditation. And Alan is a very interesting fellow. He and I did an interview, one of my early interviews. If you go back into the channel, it's Alan Horn. And I tease him because he's one of these guys who could write a very interesting book, but he's not convinced that that's a good idea yet. So, but anyway, he shows up with these books every once in a while, that off the wall stuff. And this book, I think, was written in 1958, and it's called Secret Places of the Lion, and it's by George Hunt Williamson. And he's having a blast with this book. And he had another book that he talked about before, That was very interesting as well. But I think it turned out from some further investigation that a fairly sizable portion of that was actually disinfo, but interesting nonetheless. And that's all subjective stuff, you know. I mean, you may read one of these books and it like 100% resonates, and you go with it and you handle it as if it's a true story or whatever. I think, you know, I'm very personally, I'm very supportive of that way of going at things, you know, either reserving judgment or following your path, you know. And if someone's got to say something to say about it, more power to them, you know. But, you know, follow your gut. Okay. Yeah, so Secret Places of the Lion by George Hunt Williamson. And he was showing us the cover of the book, and it had this like horseshoe cloud formation. And he was up at his cabin, I guess, up on the coast, and he was reading the book, sitting out on the porch or something, and he looked up, and there's that same cloud pattern out in the sky, and he goes, okay, I'm supposed to be reading this. So it's kind of cool. He's kind of sensitive to the messages from the world, you know, coming in at different levels. Hey, there was another video I ran across. It's from a YouTube channel called Mr. Cameron, and I think it's MR period space capital CAMORON. I think that's the way it's spelled. And this was I think it's an hour, 1 hour and 30, 1 hour and 40 something minute documentary that this guy, I think from Great Britain, put together. And it's it's kind of like a Linda Moulton Howe video, but it's not about animal mutilation. It's about human mutilation. And this is a follow-up video, documentary video that he did, where he was dealing with a fellow from whistleblower from Australia. Very interesting. I haven't finished it yet, but it's very interesting. He even includes some information in there that came from Linda. So that's another thing I'm kind of checking into and learning about. And there's another interview that I'm pursuing right now with a woman who runs a private Facebook group that has to do with gray aliens, the gray type aliens. And she has a very unique experience that she'd like to share, but she's got some things that she needs to deal with beforehand. So we're kind of muddling our way through that right now. And so that's another interview on the horizon that I'm working on. What else is going on? And one of our meditation participants has been doing some experimentation with light language insofar as she's been kind of a receiver, relayer of light language, along with some hand movements that she does. And I guess from the Christian perspective, it might be considered speaking in tongues. It's a very, very interesting area of inquiry. I haven't really studied it much. My feeling is that it sounds like gibberish. You know, if you're coming in cold and you're just watching somebody doing this, it just sounds like a little kid just like making up gibberish words and everything. But a lot of times it's a very guided experience. It doesn't really. It's almost like channeling, I guess, for some people, and maybe a type of communication that operates on a level above what we normally experience. So like if I was doing light language with you, you'd be listening to it, but you'd be understanding it on a level of consciousness that you're not directly tied with, but still information is being exchanged. I find it very interesting, like something that maybe we should be paying more attention to in terms of its ability to be useful to us. And one of the things that we talked about when she was telling us her story was the work that Tiffany does, who a lot of you know on Facebook. I think she's a member of Stillness in the Storm, and she recently went through reverse speech training. And I always thought, wow, it'd be cool to record some light language and then run it through reverse speech and just see what happens. You know, kind of like the old thing where if you're old like me and you remember the whole story about the Beatles album, and I guess it's one of Paul's songs that he did, and you play it backwards on your record player, and it says Paul is dead or something. I don't know, but it kind of reminded me of something like that. Like, wow, would it be a cool experience to do light language, do reverse speech analysis on it and see what you come up with. And then my good buddy KP. I gotta mention KP. He has been having so much fun with live streaming, and he got himself a tripod, and he's doing live streaming from his car. He's doing live streaming from the coffee shop, and I always feel like checking with KP, and it's like taking, like when you're a little kid and you want to find out whether you're sick or whatever, you take the temperature. It's like getting a reading, and it's like with KP, it's like he's in the land of Pele, the fire god over there, the connection, the hot magma connection to the center of the earth. And so KP, I always had this vision of the way KP works is like he's right there. He can take the earth's temperature. He can give you a reading of what's happening on the planet. I'm not sure if he looks at that way, but that's kind of the way I look at what's being conveyed from KP. So I always like to check in with him to see where we're at, what's going on. It says, Denny, what's your take on the super soldier and Peter the Insider? Yeah, it's mixed bag. I think for some people, Peter the Insider has been a great source of confirmation. I was actually contacted, asked to not reveal this guy's identity or whatever, but this guy contacted me from Europe, said he did some work with Peter the Insider and gave it a big endorsement, like, yeah, Peter the Insider, pay attention. And I've also gotten some information that, maybe it's not all there. Maybe there's some stuff that's kind of like, not really lining up, He's a very enigmatic figure in a lot of ways. Some people have had very good luck connecting with him and being able to transfer information. But I think it's like a lot of things, so much of this stuff, we like to put it in the category, oh, this is disinformation and this is the real deal. I don't think hardly any of the stuff out there is like that. I think a lot of it's like, there's a lot of little gold nuggets and really valuable information, and then there's elements of it that are really there to mislead us. And we just have to be sensitive to that for our own purposes. And I emphasize that for our own purposes, because this whole unity consciousness thing, I think it's really about not becoming groups of individuals, but what we do in relation to the whole. And as long as we can keep looking at it in terms of our own consciousness, our own activity, our own missions in relation to the whole, and looking at the whole in terms of like, oh, not this segment being with me or this segment being with me, but me in relation to the whole. And that way of thinking has been very helpful to me in navigating through all this falderall that we have to go through, especially with this whole outing episode that we've seen since Contact in the Desert, where people are going to alert us to the truth of things. Like, my response to that is, no thanks, I don't need your help, I can figure it out myself. And I'm going to encourage other people to do that on their own as well. So I'm not really, like Peter the Insider, as well as a lot of these other sources out there, it's really a mixture of things, none of it being wholly on board with the truth, like coming from the divine realm, or being totally in bed with the reptilian overlords and the people trying to run our program here. It's a mixture of both of those things in a lot of ways. We can refrain from hanging our hat anywhere. We don't need to hang our hat yet. We can keep it on, keep our eyes open, go through this process, use discernment without commitment. We don't have to commit to anything. It's still way too early to tell. We're still learning like a lot of basic stuff, and that's okay. Okay, so I did make some notes for today on this big, huge piece of paper, and I think I've covered just about everything on there that I wanted to talk about. And I'll grab this up later and put some links into some of the things I've talked about, because I'm always rattling off about books and whatever, and I don't expect you to write it down. Oh, that's another thing. I got some more donations on my GoFundMe channel from Ricardo, was the most recent one, and another one from Hiker Steve. Man, I really appreciate you guys are helping me out so much. We do have other sources of income, and but it's not steady income like we used to get when yours truly had a 9 to 5. So we go through periods of time when we have to rob Peter to pay Paul and all that stuff. So I really appreciate these donations, man. It's helping out a lot. So big thanks to Ricardo and to Hiker Steve again. Hiker Steve, oh my gosh, the guy's come through for me so many times. I really appreciate it. Oh, also, yes, Denny makes a lot of videos, and so if you've watched all my videos and you're up to speed on everything I put out, you need to get a life, because there's not enough hours in the day. So I mean, I know some of you do that, and I don't mean to be insulting, but I'm trying to put a shout out to the people. Like I encounter the people in my meditation group. They say, "Oh yeah, I saw you put that video out, but I haven't watched it yet." And I said, "Well, that's cool. That's totally cool. I put out a lot of videos. Sometimes I put out like 3 or 4 videos a week, and they're like an hour long and whatever." And so my take on this is that I'm creating a body of work that can be reviewed at your leisure over time, and that everybody has a life. And I have a lot of subscribers. I think I'm up to, I don't know, it's 1,600 subscribers now. I'm not in Jordan Sather territory, but I'm doing pretty good, and I'm very happy for the following that I have. I really appreciate it, and I think we're doing some cutting edge stuff with Carl and elsewhere, but it's not for everybody. A lot of people aren't going to get this. A lot of people are just going to say the guy's a nut, and most of the people that he has on his channel, they're crazy. And I get that, I have friends who are lurkers and watch this stuff and just shake their head. They just go, I don't know what this guy's thinking. Who's he talking to here? and something. Oh, I skipped the channel stuff. Oh, and somebody else says I listen to many of the videos at twice the speed. Yeah, that works too. So. But anyway, I understand that that this is not for everybody, and some people are going to come back to this years later and go, "Holy shit, he was on to something," and some people may never say that, and that's fine. That's that's okay. It's a big, wild, wonderful, wacky world out there, and there's room for lots more people like what I'm doing, and some stuff that's like on another planet. There's room for all of that here, it turns out, which is good news. So anyway, thanks for all your support and all the encouragement, and I got some other announcements that I'm working on that I'll try to come back with. I'm going to try to do this every Sunday, a live stream every Sunday. But if something comes up, I'll pop in, beforehand, or I might just save it for the following Sunday. So I tried to check before I got on about some announcements that have to. The hint is Shasta. Okay, that's the hint, Shasta. But I can't talk about it until I get the green light. So if I get the green light, I'll come back and we'll talk about it. Otherwise, Sunday afternoon on the West Coast, it's kind of like what I'm thinking about after the meditation that we do out here every morning. I'll try to come back with a live stream. And so anyway, thanks to the subscribers, thanks to the donations, big thumbs up to all you guys. I love you so much, and thank you for joining me.